Welcome back, beautiful people. This is another episode of An Untold Narrative, and today's guest is a creator in the untraditional sense compared to our other podcast guests. Today's guest, Kenny Hanson, joins us as a founder, a CEO, and a brand builder who's doing something really unique and different, but it is a self-proclaimed non-creative. And so we'll deep dive into that. Kenny, thanks for joining us, dude. How are you? Where are you? What's cooking?
David, first of all, thanks for having me. Super excited to chop it up with you and get to know you a little bit more. I'm doing great. Today has been an excellent day. I'm on day 5 of cold showers every day. And so I wake up, I have tons of energy. I'm on day 2 of my social media fast and also my coffee fast. And so the social media thing is kind of up and down. Taking coffee out, that's a little challenging, but overall, I'm feeling great. I'm here in beautiful Austin, Texas, moved here in July of this past year. And yeah, things are going well.
Dude, okay, we're gonna start with all of that. So why the cleanse? First of all, cold showers suck. 2, no coffee is wild. And then 3, social media cleanse is really interesting because as you build a business, like social media is so important. So I'm very curious to get into that. I don't know how you want to dissect all 3 of those buckets in what order, but you go ahead.
I mean, I'll just be honest with you. The social media is the difficult one. I think that social media addiction and just digital addiction overall is the biggest problem that's facing our generation that nobody talks about or very few people talk about. And I think it's such a big problem because it's such a big problem in my life. And I will call it an actual problem. I will call it an actual addiction. I felt myself, especially yesterday, that was day 1. There's a pause between work, whether it's between calls or some deep work sessions. And I'd pull up my phone and I'd scroll, pull down where it's usually, that's where they recommend Instagram. And there was nothing there. And I would feel this discomfort of like, I have to sit here with my thoughts or there's nothing to escape to. And so the reason that I'm doing this is because I recently joined a church called Red Rocks that's here in Austin, Texas, and they're doing a challenge to kick off the year called 21 Days of Prayer and Fasting. And so a lot of people are doing a food fast. Some people are doing a complete food fast for 21 days. I personally decided to do a social media fast because that's something in my life that I knew if I was to withdraw it, it would not only be good to me, good for me, but the point of fasting is so that you can create space for something else in your life. And in this challenge, particularly, it's creating space for prayer that allows you to get closer to God. So that's kind of the reason I'm doing all of this. I also thought taking coffee out of my life would be good for a moment in time. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about more of the challenge and the benefit that I've seen so far, but it's been an interesting experiment 2 days into it.
No, I mean, I can definitely self-relate to the social media addiction. I mean, my screen time's over 4 hours a day. I definitely find myself reaching for my phone more than I actually need to. I have to leave my phone in other rooms in order to have focus, hour and a half blocks of creative time. So I feel that, I know that. I definitely need to hear after you're done with it, what were some key tips and tricks and your successes there. The coffee, I don't know about that, but I'm glad it's working for you, dude. I think I love people who lean into the chapter of the new year, right? And they understand themselves, they know what they have to work on, and then they giddy up and get after it, man. That's so key.
And I think the reason that the social media addiction and the digital addiction is actually a problem is because it trains our brain consciously or subconsciously to expect a large dopamine reward for a small amount of effort. And most things that are actually worthwhile in life require a large amount of effort for a small amount of dopamine. And so if you want to sit down and you want to read a book or you want to write a book or you want to work on anything that takes a certain amount of concentration, your brain is fighting against, do I want to sit down and do this deep work that's going to take a lot of time and not reward me? Or do I want to sit over here and just click this one button and it's going to give me a really quick fix? And so that's, I think, I talk about, oh, it's a problem, but why is it actually a problem is because it's making it harder to build anything of depth, to write books, to write long form blog posts or anything like that. And we're getting used to just writing a tweet or reading a tweet or, creating or watching a short form video instead of a long form video. And so that's why I'm actually trying to do it, is because I'm trying to retrain my brain to not expect so much dopamine for such a little bit of effort, but being able to concentrate in longer blocks of time and actually allow me to create more thoughtful work.
Whew. Okay. Wow. All right. I mean, dude, you convinced me. I might get after it today or tomorrow, but hopefully people. I mean, where did you like? I want to understand the why a little bit more, right? Like deep rooted cause, because I think it's, we right now, especially on social, there's a trend over the past 6 months of people just posting like, let's call them just quotes, like motivational quotes. And then they, everybody shares them and they go viral or whatever. And they're, you know, theoretically in the moment you read it and you're like, oh yeah, like now I'm ready to go. And then you do nothing with it. Clearly, like something is deep inside you that's motivating you to actually put it into action. So many of us get stuck on the idea and we think about it and we're like, that's a great idea, but they don't put any action behind it. So like, what is it about you that makes you actually want to do it?
I went through a really big transformation in my life about 5 years ago, where I went from being a talker to a doer. And I can almost track it to a moment in time when that transition happened, or transformation, I call it. Um, and at that time, I was working in a corporate job. I was a consultant at Accenture. I had a great life, a really nice apartment in Washington, D.C., fancy things, everything like that. And I was talking to one of my mentors. Her name was AUN. She was a very successful entrepreneur. She built an amazing company called Solid Core, which now has over 100 studios nationwide. And I was talking to her about this idea that I had. And I said, I want to build a mentoring platform that you can book a call with almost anybody in the world and get advice from them. And she looked at me and she said, that's an excellent idea. Like, I need that product because I get hit up all the time. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I was getting all of this validation. I was getting a lot of dopamine for a little bit of work. She gave me the validation without me actually having to build it, but just saying that. And I think she could kind of sense that a little bit. And she called me out for the first time and she said, are you going to talk about being an entrepreneur for the rest of your life? Or are you actually going to become one? And that is like the single moment that I can trace things back to, where I started to learn in my life that results come from action and not ideas, not talking about things. You actually have to act on anything. And so now, 5 years later, I've started to build this muscle in my life that is kind of like you would consider self-leadership, where you start to identify a desired future state that you want. Maybe it's that you want to be fit. Maybe it's that you want to be really strong, or you want to be fast. And you recognize that there's a certain amount of work that you need to do between where you are and where you want to be. And you just do the work. And so in any aspect of my life, whether that be financial, physical, emotional, I recognize that there's some future state that I want to achieve. And right now it's being more mindful, being more present, being more calm, less anxious, all of those things. And I know exactly what needs to happen in order for me to reach that future state. And it's getting social media out of my life. And that's really challenging because it's literally a physical addiction. But I've mustered up all of my courage and the strength of community and other people that are doing this fast with me. And I've started to take the steps. And so there's days, you're obviously going to want to cheat. You're going to want to go back on it, but your desire to reach that future state has to be stronger than the desire to cheat in that individual moment. So I think it's just building a muscle of understanding what it is that you want to achieve, and then just doing the work and showing up and being disciplined. It's the difference between being a professional and being an amateur. Even when you don't want to do the work, you still got to show up and do it.
There's spot on. There's a tremendous quote by Alex Hermosi that says the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And it's just like the most truthful, flat out statement that exists. I took a call last week with somebody who graduated from my hometown a year after me. And he's like, I want to get into fashion. I want to get into this. Like, I have all these ideas. And I'm like, he's like, but I don't have a degree. Like, what should I do? And I'm like, well, have you built anything like to show anybody? And he's like, well, no, but I have these, like, sounds like you just need to start doing things to like be able to send an email or a LinkedIn DM of why you deserve that job. You just haven't done any of the work. And it's exactly what you just said. So you had this pivotal moment. And since that, you've transformed your life. If somebody goes to your social media page, even though you might not be active today, you'll see a really fit dude. You'll see a founder and CEO. You'll see somebody who travels the world. You see an idyllic life, but it's taken a lot of work. What's been the hardest part of the past 5 years? Is there like a moment where you're just like, fuck, or you broke down, or like you're just like, is this even worth it? Like, should I go back to my old self? Like, have you ever had that conversation?
No, absolutely not. Just kidding. Of course I have. I've had it over and over and over again. I wish I could trace it back and say that that conversation only happened one time. But if I'm going to show up to this conversation, and I'm going to be real with you. The honest answer is it happens often. And self-doubt is something that creeps in a lot. And when I was going to start this business, I knew that it was going to be the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. And it has still somehow surpassed that. I think the thing that's been most challenging is just not quitting and like really shifting the way that I think about time and the way that I think about attention, where I've always been fairly ADD my whole life, and I haven't liked to spend like years and years on an individual project. I'm someone that generally likes to jump around. And I'm recognizing now, if you want to have like any semblance of success with a business, it's going to take 10 years at minimum. And that is something that people said that they're like, hey, if you want to build and exit a company, it takes between 5 and 8 years. And I was like, okay, but I see this path where I could do it on the shorter side and blah, blah, blah. It's really, really unlikely. Some people do it. But the reality is it's just staying invested in one thing for at least 10 years and showing up every single day and doing the dirty work. What you'll see on my social media is not my day-to-day life. My day-to-day life is sitting in front of this computer right here, having phone calls with people, doing deep work, talking to our team, talking to our mentors, banging my head against this wall right here and saying, what the hell is going wrong? And so it's the same thing over and over and over again. And that was something that I was really afraid of throughout my life. I went into consulting because I love the idea of being able to jump from one project to the next and always have something new in life. And don't get me wrong, there's new things that are happening in the business, but the reality is it's just a grind. And there are days that that it's tough and you don't want to show up and you want to take a day off, but you can't, because you recognize that, especially in a small business, if you don't show up, the business doesn't show up, and you can't take time away without the business slowing down. And so it's just your constant time and attention that's required. And the other thing is just the emotional volatility. In a day-to-day basis, you'll go from having one call that you feel like is going to, 5x the business. And then an hour later, you have another call with somebody that's upset with you and you think the business is going to fall apart and you're going to go bankrupt. And that emotional volatility, it's starting to wean out a little bit as the business gets bigger and things like that. But for the most part, it's still there where you're 110% invested. And if somebody tells you this business has changed their life, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We have such purpose. And then an hour later, another customer comes in and talks about all the things that went wrong and you're in the pit. So it's taken a bit of stoicism and creating a bit of space between my emotional reaction and the external world, but it's really, really hard to do. And like I said, it's the hardest thing I've ever done and then some.
So why do it? Like let's talk about MentorPass a little bit more, just to get ground people, explain maybe a little bit about what it is. But I want to understand the why you're doing it, because if it's such a grind, you're on an emotional roller coaster, your brain is in a blender half the time. You're trying to free up space and focus and do all these things. This is not an easy life. But there's a saying that says, if you want an easy life, you need to do hard things. And if you want a hard life, do easy things. And I always go back to that because it's so simple and broken down. But the easy life doing hard things is really hard things. And so what's the why behind it, and the mission, and why you're stoked to get up out of bed every day?
It really is a personal mission first. And that personal mission is what has kept the business alive. The first year that I tried to launch the business, We did one call for $120 and we made $20 off of that. And if it wasn't for my belief in our mission, I 100% would have given up and gone back and gotten a job and made a bunch of money and had the security and low stress. But I believed in our mission, which is why I stayed with it. And we found success on the other side of that. So the reason that why I wanted to build this is because growing up as a teenager, I went through a challenging time myself, where I got mixed up in the wrong crowds. I got mixed up in the wrong things, in and out of trouble, in and out of school. I ultimately failed out of high school and was largely written off as a lost cause by a lot of the peers and maybe parents in my community. And I was able to eventually turn my life around and go from high school, dropout to going to a community college, getting good grades, going to a great university, becoming a student leader, and then going on to have a great career at a prestigious company. And I was 5 years into that prestigious company. And I said, how did I just do that? Like a lot of my friends that I was, peers with went down a different path. And I recognized that the reason I was able to do that was because I had amazing mentors that I was able to connect with and learn from. And these were people like my friends' parents who were CEOs of companies or congressmen or church leaders. And I was so privileged and fortunate and lucky to be surrounded by these people. And I looked around and I said, so few people in the world have access to this. And my mission is to take my privilege and open up the door for other people and give them access to the best mentors in the world. And so for me, it's deeply personal that I know that this is what saved my life and has really got me to the place that I am. And I want to give more people access to that same type of experience, to transform your life and to go from a talker to a doer, and to be supported in the hard times when you feel like you want to shut down your business and everyone's telling you should, but that one person says, I believe in you, keep going. Those are the types of experiences that keep me going. Is every once in a while when I talk to one of our customers and they tell me that story of, I was really in a tough place and I talked to Moise and Moise like completely turned my mindset around. And those, it's not that it happens every single call, but maybe one in every 10 or one in every 20, there is a transformational moment like that. And that's what keeps me going, is I know that there are people out there that we're making a difference for. And I think it's the most important thing in life is having people there for you to support you and guide you and help you grow.
Wow. Okay. That is a lot to unpack. I at a very, very micro scale of relatability, part of the reason why I do this podcast is it's, in my opinion, like in service of others to educate people on other people that they might not know about and like their experiences. And so they can take one nugget of information you or anybody else says and go transform something within their own lives. But on the flip side of the coin, it's very selfish for myself because I also learned during all of this. And it seems like your business is very similar to that, in service of others, but it's also deeply rooted as a selfish cause. And so I think that's really special because if it was just one side, I feel like it might dwindle out over time. But because it covers both ends, it actually gives you a much stronger, wave to ride, and can last a lot longer.
Yeah, I think generally in life, the most fulfilling experiences for yourself are often when you are serving others. And so if you feel like you need your cup filled up, start by filling up the cup of others. And however it is that you can do that, whether it's, if you feel like you need some money, start giving some money away. And I've had financial stresses over the recent past. Being an entrepreneur is difficult, bootstrapping the company. And I've felt like I've been in tight places. And when I'm in that deep place, in that dark place, and I'm worried about money and I walk by someone that's on the street, I give them some money. And that is the way that I believe life works. And it's the most fulfilling thing that you can do, is helping serve other people. And I'm very grateful that I found a platform in life, like literally a platform in MentorPass, that allows me to serve other people all the time. And that's been another one of the challenges, is as we've grown, my time and work has gotten away from serving our customers and mentees directly, and has started to be spent more on the business, which I do love business, but if I could just talk to our members all day and help them solve their challenges, like I would be so thrilled. But the reality is there are other things internal in the business that I have to focus on. But when I get to talk to somebody and I get to hear the story, and if I'm able to help them directly by connecting them with the right mentor, it's really the most fulfilling thing in my day. And we consistently also hear this from our mentors. People say all the time, this is my favorite part of my week. Every time I get booked for a MentorPass call, our mentors really enjoy doing it because everyone likes helping somebody else achieve their goals. So I guess in summary, if you feel like you need help, try helping someone else first and trust that it will come back to you.
Yeah, 100%. And I like that you tied it back into MentorPass because I did want to give you a moment to talk about, again, there's a number of people who might be on the brink of a new idea, a lot of creators who are listening to this and they don't know where to turn. And so give everybody I don't know, a couple minutes to understand why should they go to MentorPass, right? Because I've gone there, obviously, I've been fortunate to connect with you over the past few weeks. And you'll see people with crazy job titles from all over the world, from, major brands to smaller brands, a wildly diverse selection of humans across different industries. And so if somebody's listening to this, they have an idea, but they just need somebody to talk to, why should they go to MentorPass?
We've tried to make it very easy and accessible. To have kind of a one-stop shop for all the help and mentorship you need when building a business, and mostly consumer businesses, e-commerce brands, any type of physical product. We've aggregated 300 of the best mentors in the world that can help you from creating the LLC and opening the Shopify account to scaling the business to tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And what we've really focused on is the quality of our mentors. One of the challenges right now is you have a lot of people out there in the world that are building big businesses as experts, and they haven't actually walked the walk. They're just talking. And so we've gone through a really intensive selection process. We've had over 10,000 people apply to become a mentor on the platform, and we've taken the top 300. And these are people that are bona fide experts in their area of business. So that could be someone that's a marketing expert and that can help you figure out how to find your first customer or your 1 millionth customer, or people that are supply chain experts. We have the chief supply chain officer from Athletic Greens that scaled up that supply chain to grow so fast. We have the founders of companies like Native Deodorant and Simple Modern and Dude Wipes and all these household brands that you see today. And you can connect with whether it be the founder and the CEO or the leadership team there that can help you with every function of the business. So in short, it's just a one-stop shop to find all the help that you need in a really simple, easy to use interface where you just log onto the website, you create an account, you pick a subscription, and then you can use those credits that you get every month to book calls with the different mentors.
That's it's like your own board of directors or advisory board, all at one platform, which is really cool, right? For any builder out there.
Yeah, I think what's most special about our business is the person that we help the most is not the super connected. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of super connected people that are customers of ours and love us for the convenience and the ease. The person that we help the most is the disconnected, the person that's sitting in a small town in middle of nowhere America, and they want to start their e-commerce business. They don't have to go through the years of moving to New York City and going to every meetup and trying to get the attention of people in order to get 15 minutes of somebody's time. There's no more gatekeeping. We are breaking down the barriers to talk to the best people in the world. And that is really that's the secret sauce when it comes to building a business, is making good decisions. And we can really help people improve their decision-making by connecting them with people who have gone through it over and over again.
It's really unbelievable. I was so excited to get connected through our friend Ryan, and just talk about this. And that's why I wanted you on the show, is because it's just, it's such a great idea. Like even myself growing up, like I'm over 10 years now in the industry. It's like, I wish I had like, I really wish I had mentors, and I just didn't. And I had to figure it out. And it could have been a lot easier. And you could have, who knows, 2x like your pace or your goals or your ambitions or whatever it is. I do want to pivot a little bit. I'm wildly attracted to humans who are so driven with some sort of physical or, movement aspect to their life. And so obviously, like, I know you're a runner and you're, physically active. And I think there is a connection. And this is a thesis that I'm now starting to share on this podcast because I want to talk about it more and more, of the doers of the world and the people who actually get shit done usually, and this is my thesis, like I think are connected to having some sort of physical outlet, whether it's jujitsu, whether it's running, whether it's, it could be but it's religious, right? It's day by day, it's week by week, and like that's their outlet. Like, what's your reaction to something like that?
Yeah, I definitely think that there is a commonality between the two. It's a general competitiveness that when you see somebody that wants to go and do something that's incredibly hard, like building a business from zero, those people are mostly competitive in all aspects of their life. And don't get me wrong, there are some of those people that channel all of their competitive nature into that business, in that business only. And so those people may not have the physical kind of endeavors, but I think a lot of people, it's in all aspects of their life. And me personally, I organize my life into wealth, health, and happiness. And I'm always thinking about, like, this is my wealth bucket. This is my business. This is my generational wealth for the family. I've got every, priority lined up there and everything like that. And then in my health bucket, it's my mental and physical health. And then in happiness, it's my relationships, it's my spirituality, it's my mindfulness and everything like that. And so I think you, especially as you start to run a business, you start to understand how to organize your life or your business, and you start to put priorities around that. And then for me personally, I found that setting goals is extremely helpful. And so whether that be running a marathon, or if you're in strength training, it's reaching a certain max on your bench or your squat, or whatever it may be. So I think that those people are naturally competitive, and that competitive nature goes across business and sports. I think there's a really cool kind of content category that's emerging that is fascinating to me and motivating to me, which is this hybrid athlete entrepreneur that are combining both. And there's some really cool YouTube creators, people like Nick Bear, who are building businesses to tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And also, I think he just ran a 2:43 marathon. And so, and he's documenting the process, and there's this crossover, and obviously he sells sports supplements. And so it's a natural crossover, but then there's other people out there, Devin Levesque and some other people that are just killers when it comes to overall competitiveness and athleticism, and then are also building great businesses. And I think some people talk about it as, like, I don't know, the total man or something like that, but it's this idea that you need to be well-rounded. And if you want to build a great life, that doesn't just mean build a great business. It means build a great family, build a great body, build a great business, but don't sacrifice the other two for the business. And I think that that's a trend and a theme that more and more people are resonating with, which is why more creators are following that, is because it's getting traction. People are like, I don't want to just see the 9 to 5 or the whatever grind it is that you're doing. I also want to see what you're doing in the gym, your family life, so that I can actually trust that you're the type of person that I should take advice from, instead of just saying you're going to go all in on business and the rest of your life is going to fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, this is why you and I connect, is because, like, we're attracted to the same types of things. And, like, yeah, we talked about, George Heaton from Represent, and, like, these types of people who just, like, are just so, they're inspirational, they're motivated, but they're like, they're normal dudes or females as well. Like, they're just like normal people, but they just, like, it's all encompass. It's just like they want the most out of every single day they're on this planet. And, like, to me, that's the greatest thing anybody could accomplish. The moment you wake up to the moment your head hits the pillow, like, you've laid it all out there. And that is like, I think those people have figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say that's a good life. If you can create a life where you are capable and comfortable doing that every day and going to bed exhausted, and you're happy with that, you don't feel like you're exhausted for the wrong company or you're exhausted for the wrong person, but you're happy to put all your energy out there. I'd say that's a sign that you've built a really good life for yourself.
One So again, like it sounds like if I'm taking myself out from being the host of this podcast, if I'm just listening to you speak, it honestly sounds like you've figured it out. Like it's like you're building a business. Sure, there's some trials and tribulations, and you know you're physically fit, you're motivated. You know, it sounds like you have purpose in church, and you found service of others. It sounds like you're checking a lot of these boxes that somebody listening to this might be like, this dude's awesome. And so, like, what's something that people misunderstand about you, whether they know you for 10 years or they're just finding out about you today? Like, is there anything that stands out of like something that's misunderstood?
I was actually just talking to a good friend of mine last night. We hadn't talked in a little while. We caught up on a call, and the thought that came out was, I thought we would have had it figured out by now. You know, we're both 33 years old. We've been best friends for a long time and grew up playing football together, and we're both trying to figure it out. And so I'll just say that maybe I've figured out the right things to say, and I'm doing my best to get better and spend my time more wisely and everything like that. But I don't think we ever figure it out. And kind of the point in my life that I've gotten to is accepting the fact that I'm going to be hopefully, you know, in my 90s or 100s on my deathbed and still saying, maybe that's how it works. Because you know, you constantly learn. And the reflection I had that brought that up is, was around my mindfulness practice. And I spent a number of years of my life really focused on building my mindfulness practice. I left my corporate job. I moved to Bali, Indonesia, and I traveled around Southeast Asia, really learning how to meditate and do breath work and become more conscious and aware of my thoughts so that I could direct my life in a more intentional way. And I built such a good practice and a good foundation. And then I started to let things slip, and I was like, okay, I've arrived, and I'm him, and I'm here, and that's who I am now. And over time, over a number of years, especially as I moved back to the US and I got more caught up in the business and more back to normal life where I'm not in this secluded place where it's easy to be mindful, all of those habits slipped away. And I found myself at the end of last year totally mindless, where I was going through a stressful situation, and I recognized that my thoughts and my emotions were completely running my life, and I was being totally reactive to things that were happening to me. And I had to kind of hit this point of like rock bottom with that aspect of my life to start to rebuild and go back to my foundational books of The Power of Now, The Four Agreements, and some other books like that, and restart my meditation practice. And so it's just this point that like, it's easy to understand what you should do and the right things to do and the right things to say. And it's easy to say, oh, I know you're not supposed to be reactive when someone treats you a certain way. It's really hard to actually be that in practice and in reality. And I'll say that the same thing goes for every single topic that we've talked about. It's easy for me to sit here and say, you have to build a great business, and you have to treat people well, and you have to find scalable growth channels, or you have to go to the gym every day, and you have to stop eating crappy foods. It's easy for anybody to show up on a podcast and say all of those things. That you can figure out. There's a blueprint and a playbook. What's really hard is actually walking the walk for 10 years at a time to be on the other side of it and have the results. So I'm not saying that I don't have any results. I have some decent results. But I'd love to be able to look back 5 years from now and say all of these things that I'm preaching, I'm also practicing, and I've been doing it for long enough that I have the results to show. I'm still in that kind of in-between phase right now. I mentioned, the financials of things. Bootstrapping a business is hard. And so while I preach, you got to find financial freedom in your life, I'm not there. I can't pay for my kids to go to college, and I don't have kids yet, but like those are the things that I aspire to be. and that's the man I aspire to be. And I hope to continue to work hard every day and do the little things right to eventually get there. But I started going to church like a month ago. So I'm constantly experimenting. I'm constantly looking for new ways to improve my life and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. This was a bit of a rant, but just the idea that like it's easy to say these things. It's much harder to show up and do those things day in and day out for a long period of time and actually have the transformation that gets you the results.
Wow. I mean, I'm ready to run through a brick wall, man. Like I and it's hard to like motivate me. Like, I'm a pretty motivated person myself, but like I feel real good right now after listening to that. So thank you for sharing it. And I think that's just the signal to have you back on in 5 years and see if see if you've proven it out.
Put it on the calendar. Put it on the calendar right now.
we'll book it through MentorPass. As we wrap up, Kenny, what's one piece of advice that you would give to anybody that's like either shared with you through a mentor or you've read in one of your book explorations or you've discovered from somebody in the jungle of Bali or something like that? Like is there like one thing that like you always go back to like as a root thing in your mind to get you up out of bed when you don't want to get up out of bed, or whatever it is there anything that comes to mind?
There are three things that come to mind, so I'm just going to speak my mind and go with all three of them. One is what I said earlier. The difference between a professional and an amateur is the amateur shows up when they want to, and the professional shows up regardless of whether or not they want to. So, like we just had with that conversation, it's easy to know what to do. It's really hard to do what you need to do. And so just stop negotiating with yourself. And if you say you're going to do something and you say that this is your daily routine or your weekly routine, just do the work and take the emotion out of it, take the decision out of it, and just do it. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is the power of self-belief is the most powerful thing in the world. And this is something I'm frankly struggling with right now. But when I told the story at the beginning of my mentor who said, that's a great idea, just do it. The transformation that happened inside of me is that for the first time in my life, I believed I could be an entrepreneur because an entrepreneur that I admired told me that I could. And it was that self-belief that changed, that created action. And there was a point in time in my life when I was extremely mindful and I had very little distraction. And so I could focus every day about my self-belief. And I had 100% certainty that the vision that I had was going to come true. And when that vision started to bump up against reality, I've let my self-belief slide back a little bit. And I've had some doubts come in. And I'm trying to, in this process that I'm going through now, like reprogram those things and get in there and say, where am I doubting myself and how can I turn that doubt back to belief? And so I don't have a quick tip for you on how to do it, but just understand that whether or not you believe in yourself is an extremely important factor in whether or not you're actually going to succeed. So figure out a way to believe in yourself. And then I had a third one that has escaped me at the moment. It's vision. That's the last thing I would say is focus and spend a lot of time on your vision for your life. And everything, your business, your health, your family, everything's going to fit into that, but get really literal, with your vision for life. What does it look like when you're waking up five years from now or 10 years from now? What's the sight that you see? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Are there kids in the background? Who are you waking up next to? Are you living on a beach? Like, get really, bring in the sensory of all of that experience and then understand what it's like to actually experience that. And then try to align everything in your life to drive towards that individual vision and really spend a lot of time, not only thinking about it and meditating on it, but refining it. And it should grow with you. And that's going to change over time as you learn new things and everything like that. But I think a lot of people are really caught up in the now, which is great. But you also need to spend some time deep in the future, really visualizing and meditating on what is that future version of yourself and how can I become that?
Whew. Those are three amazing things. If people are late to their New Year's resolutions and need a way to figure out and map them out, follow those three line items and you will for sure become a better person in 2024. Kenny Hanson, this has been tremendous. I'm jazzed up, dude. Thank you so much for your time. Last thing, where can people find you if you do return to social media? Where can they check you out, or, plug in MentorPass and let people know where to go?
Yeah, we're at MentorPass on all social media channels. If you just, I think, Google me, I think my Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn will come up there. You can also feel free to email me directly, kenny@mentorpass.co. That's the best way to reach me directly. I'm taking a break from social media, but when I get back on there, I'll get to DMs and everything, but feel free to reach out to me directly. David, thanks so much for hosting such an incredible conversation, for the great questions. And super excited to welcome you to the family at MentorPass and to eventually get a run on the books. You got to get to Austin. We're going to do this run.
For sure. I'm really stoked about that. I do love those adventures. So it's definitely in the near future. So thanks again, man. I super appreciate it.